Jim Walsh, the chairman, he's coming for you.
Wow. Look at that, huh? How about that?
I don't know, John. It's a little forlorn.
It is.
I'd like something more upbeat.
I know. Thank you for that. We can do that. I could tell that you wanted to come on because I got this text message at 6:00 in the morning. This is I don't know what else you expect from a socialist, Shaun Scott, representing the 43rd. He's got big plans. He wants to make sure that everybody pays more taxes. He wants to tax the rich.
Taxing the rich is a very, very popular idea. Washington State faced a $16 billion, B as in Bill Gates, budgetary shortfall in the most recent budgetary session. And coming up in the January 2026 legislative session, we're going to be facing another $2 billion budgetary shortfall. So we're going to have an opportunity to...
That's billion with a B, like Bill Gates.
...do the right thing by working people in the state.
Oh, yeah.
By doing everything from closing corporate loopholes to implementing a wealth tax to ending huge tax breaks for data centers in Washington State. And if we take that course of action, which I'm going to do everything in my power as a representative from the 43rd to make sure that we do, we're going to end up with a budget that I think more clearly reflects the values of working and everyday people in our state.
All right. Okay, whatever. All right. So, Walsh, this thing's coming up that you guys have a chance to talk about this. Does it actually have any momentum? Explain where all the taxes are supposed to hit with this idea from our socialist friend.
Yeah, I heard there's a sequel to Spinal Tap coming out.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the great lines in the original Spinal Tap is there's a thin line between clever and stupid. I love Spinal Tap, John.
Yes, I know.
I'm sorry, what was your question? Oh, yes, this tax idea. This is DOA. It's based partly on another dumb bill that was filed last year, and they're going to increase the dumbness of this proposal, I guess. The idea is they want to do a payroll excise tax. And this is just our friend, Representative Scott, and apparently Senator Saldana has also lent her support to this idea. And there may be others, but I don't think a lot of others. What they're doing is they're trying to make a state income tax. And they're using well, I don't know if it's clever or stupid, but whatever. Language around that thin line from the state Supreme Court a few years ago, which called our state's capital gains tax an excise tax.
Right.
Not an income tax, which 49 other states consider a capital gains tax, and the IRS considers the capital gains tax income tax. But here in Washington, because we're special, it's an excise tax, not an income tax. So these special legislators have taken that language from the state Supreme Court and applied it to payroll tax, calling it an excise tax. But it's all blarney. It's all rhetoric. This is or would be a state income tax. And we just passed into law a couple years ago now, Initiative 2111, which makes it clear, that's now our law, it's law in the state, that income taxes are against the law. There will be no tax based on income in the state of Washington. And they can play games and say, well, a payroll excise tax is not paid for by the worker, it's paid for by the employer. That's blarney. It's paid for by the worker. And it's just one more insult. It's one more reason that, as Brad Smith, the head guy over at Microsoft, said, they're looking at moving even to Vancouver, British Columbia. Because if you can believe it, Canada's tax situation is better than Washington's.
But Jim, you started this whole thing with the idea that this thing is dead on arrival. I mean, is it really dead on arrival? I mean, we don't even need to have you on.
It's just dangerous enough. And I think what it is it's cover for other bad ideas for taxes they want to raise. What Scott said in that little snippet you played about how there's a crisis. Oh, my God, there's a crisis. There's a crisis. We need more taxes because there's a crisis. Someone else is going to fill that spot. I mean, this idea probably won't be it. But another tax and spend leftist in Olympia, the state senator Noelle Frame, who by the way is kind of personally charming, but her ideas are terrible.
Okay.
She wants to do the wealth tax, which is the tax on unrealized capital gains. So you own an investment piece of property, a rental house or something. Even if you don't sell it, you're going to owe more tax on it because on paper it's worth more than you paid for it. And currently you got to pay taxes in state if you sell it. But this wealth tax would say you got to pay taxes on it even if you don't sell it. And the same applies to any money you got in the stock market or a certificate of deposit or whatever you might have your money.
Yeah, but Jim, that thing's not going to go anywhere because to administer that, to actually have to keep track of that sort of stuff, is a nightmare for anyone. The cost of trying to get that money, and people would just simply move around. The thing, I don't know if they understand. There's a study that was done out at Stanford, did this study for a 30-year longitudinal study. A 1% increase in corporate tax had no effect on pass-through companies, but C corporations closed at 4%. But then when they looked at other corporations, said a 1% tax causes a 1 to 7% of those companies to leave the state and take the jobs with them. All of this sort of idea, we'll just tax the rich and they'll just stand there and let us, have our way with them. It doesn't hold true because businesses will leave. Businesses are leaving the state of Washington. They're going to Idaho and they're going to Utah. And they leave because the taxes are too high and they don't like the fact that people say, well, you don't deserve the money that you have, or it's you're excise or excessive. I like that. That's the stuff that they'd be talking about here in Seattle. Excessive, anything over $1 million is excessive. So therefore, you're a prime target to go get that money because the state so desperately needs it. So if this thing's dead on arrival, I won't have to worry about that. So I want to change the subject to the initiative process. I was in Cle Elum yesterday, of course, and I was there in Safeway, went by there, and the guy out front was getting signatures, and I said, how's it going? Is anybody bothering you? And he said to me, about a third of the people that are coming, this was in Cle Elum, the Clum, Jim. About a third of the people that are coming up are causing him problems, yelling and screaming and distracting people that want to sign. That's in Cle Elum. So is there a group of people that are putting up the locations where these signature gatherers are and then organizing to have activists go there and stop people from exercising their First Amendment right? Is that happening?
Oh, you bet they are. Yeah, it's a pop-up pack set up by a couple of mostly by the Washington Education Association, but there are other groups involved in it. And so they created a pack specifically to oppose the three initiatives that are out gathering signatures right now. And they're really scared because all three of them are popular. And so they're getting very aggressive and they're coordinating information about where the signature gatherers are, and they're sending people there to harass them. They don't really expect to discourage the signature gatherers, the volunteers, or even some who might be getting paid. But what they're trying to do is scare other people away. If they cause a big scene, then nobody will sign the initiative. And the three initiatives that are out, of course, are Restore the Parents' Bill of Rights, which got about 3/4 gutted in the last session in Olympia. No boys and girls sports, protect girls sports in Washington, and then the Voter ID Initiative. And I thought the Voter ID Initiative was going to be the one that attracted all the crazies and the hate and the opposition, but it's not. It's the No Boys and Girls Sports is the one that seems to have set the far left all akimbo, and they're harassing people. It's not funny. I mean, in some cases, they're actually taking swings at the people gathering signatures. Usually, they're not. Usually, they try to grab the petitions and like rip them up, or a couple of them have this sticky blue ink and they throw the ink on the petitions so you can't read them. But I mean, they're getting kind of salty. They're getting salty and assaulty.
Yes. So at this point, with Brian Hayward's action with this, the money he's spending on these two initiatives to throw these back into Olympia, does he have, the last number I saw was about 2 months ago, I think he had 45 or 50 some percent. He needed, I don't know how many signatures altogether. Will he hit the deadline on these things? The last count on the one getting, short answer, yeah, I think so. I don't think anybody's there yet, but the last month, which we're in, December's the last month, you can gather signatures on these, is always the busiest. And you start getting them back from people who have them, and the numbers mount up.
The no boys and girls sports, I believe, is in first position, closest to qualified. Restoring Parents' Bill of Rights is next, and voter ID is third. All of them are over halfway. I think no boys and girls sports is like 3/4 or better. So they're getting there. And if you follow the history of how the signature gathering works, it's really back-ended. So I would say all three of them are on track to qualify. The no boys and girls sports is out in front of the other two.
I saw that the WEA, the teachers union, they've decided their attack against boys and girls sports is that who among us here could possibly identify gender and sex? And really, it's not fair to say, well, gametes and biology and chromosomes. I mean, that's just all really. Can we really define gender? Is it possible to possibly define gender? Nobody really can. I mean, this argument is just like crazy town stuff, but that's what they're trying to push out there, that it's not fair. And now nobody really knows. And the doctor just takes a guess, and you could be anything you want to be. And there's a million different genders and everything. So that seems to be their move on it. So Jim, just take everybody through school for one moment. Okay. The initiatives make it gets to Olympia. What stops them from doing the same thing they did before with, say, the Parents' Bill of Rights or the boys and girls sports? What's the action that will actually make these things become law?
Well, all three of them are initiatives to the legislature. So you can do an initiative either to the legislature first, and then to the people if the legislature doesn't pass it into law, or you can do an initiative that goes straight to the people. All three of these are designed as initiatives to the legislature. So first, if they qualify and they get enough signatures, they go to the legislature this upcoming short session starting January, and the legislature can either pass them into law, which is what they did with the Parents' Bill of Rights the first time around, or they can ignore them. Or they can pass an alternate version of it. But whatever they do, if they don't pass it into law, it goes to the people for a vote at the next general election. So that would be the general election November 2026, next year. And there, a simple majority vote of the people passes the initiative into law. So if the speaker in Olympia, Lori Jenkins, decides to vote these into law, they become law and they don't go to the people. That's what she did with the original Parents' Bill of Rights, because they were afraid if it went on the November ballot, it was going to turn out conservative voters and tilt some of the legislative and congressional races toward the conservatives. So they were tactical. I guess they were clever again. And they passed it into law, figuring they'd just wait a year and then gut it or mess with it. And that's kind of what they did. They could try to do that again, and maybe would. But at some point, that becomes ridiculous if they see that when they do that thing, where they pass an initiative they don't like into law, then try to gut it a year or two later, we'll just keep coming back with restoration initiatives to put the policy back again. Then I think they're going to see that's kind of a foolish strategy. While it might be a good short-end tactic, it's a dumb long-term strategy. So we'll see. Well, again, clever and stupid.
Right. But Jim, the money doesn't grow on trees unless you are a legislator in Olympia and you think that the trees are owned by the rich people. Certainly at some point, Brian Hayward's not going to stop writing. He's going to stop writing checks for these things. So if they pass it into law like they did before, and then they get in there and they monkey around with it and change it all up, and the parents are not number one caring for the child, but the school and the government steps in between the parents. Eventually Hayward's going to I'm not going to do this again. Third time, I'm not going to continue to spend the money to get all these signatures together in order to do this initiative. They may just try to wind him down and grind him down so he stops writing checks for this stuff. And then you will have the state of Washington determining what the parent is allowed to know about the child. What the changes that you guys want to make, very, very simple. Like, for instance, the parent the school must tell the parent within 10 days what's being taught in that class. The parent must be told immediately. If the child comes home and has been sexually assaulted or in some way injured, they don't have 48 hours. They have to tell the parent immediately. And also, the parent can opt the child out of a bunch of stuff. And also, the parent has the right to know the mental condition and the health of the child. That can't be held and kept back from the parent. I mean, this is such simple things that one would believe that anybody would agree with. But in the state of Washington, the folks that didn't want the Parents' Bill of Rights to become law thought the state is in first position with the child and putting the parent in second or third position. When I explained that to my dear mother-in-law over the weekend, and she's the liberal, Jim, she said, I can't understand why they would do that. And I said, I don't, Athena, I can't explain it either.
Yeah, it's crazy. And when you talk to people about it, a lot of times liberals often, sometimes even moderates, they don't believe it's true. I mean, they'll tell me that's not right. That's not what the law says. Well, but it is what the law says.
Yeah.
Why do they do it, John? They do it because there is the potential for a great public medicine, public health machine set up where the government would set clinics at schools and administer mental health services and physical health services to children under the Apple Care Medicaid banner, roughly speaking, without parental consent or notification. That's the sort of end game here. It's a money-making scheme. Right. And we, they don't care that they're trampling parental rights because it's a step toward setting up these state government-funded, Apple Health-funded health clinics at schools.
Well, we bury the headline. There's the story. Follow the money on this sort of stuff. Mr. Walsh, I've got to let you go because Nate has to do traffic so we can continue to pay really high gas prices, okay?
We're working on that too, John.
Oh, you better Walsh, get something done this year. You understand? 2026 is the year Jim Walsh just is like a roaring lion. All right?